Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've got quite a stack of material today, and we're going deep on a concept many folks think they get, but maybe don't fully master: compounding. We're trying to move past just the formula. We're asking, what if unlocking serious wealth isn't some hidden stock tip, but really just a set of principles, principles you can actually follow? So today, our focus is drilling down into the strategy, but also the psychology needed for long-term capital growth. We're digging into this source material called Compounding: 40 Laws to Double Your Money.
Yeah, and that title is pretty bold, isn't it? 40 laws, it grabs you. The source basically frames compounding not just as like math, but as the secret law of money. It's the engine, supposedly, turning small, steady actions into, well, huge results over time. Our job here, I think, is to figure out why on earth you'd need 40 rules for something that seems like simple interest calculation, right?
Exactly.
It suggests the real challenge isn't the calculation, it's us. It's managing the human side of things.
That hits the nail on the head. The math part is easy, yeah, but actually doing it consistently, that's tough. So, okay, our mission today is pretty clear. We want to pull out the essential, the actionable bits from these principles. We need to identify what core disciplines you really need for that sustained financial growth. We want to help you, listening right now, move from just knowing the idea to actually, doing it. All right, let's tackle that core claim straight away. The source calls compounding the secret law of money. But hang on, isn't the first thing everyone says about compounding that you just need time? Lots of time. How is that a secret? What's the source adding here that goes beyond just needing a long time horizon?
Well, it's less about time itself being the secret and more about the whole framework. The difficulty of actually sticking to it, that's the secret part, maybe. The source argues the secrecy isn't in the concept, it's in the adherence. That's why you need 40 laws, not just one saying be patient. It bundles these rules into like an integrated approach. You've got financial strategies, sure, but also the psychological discipline, and then these maintenance laws, things to protect the process over decades.
Ah, okay. So it's not just one tip. It's like a whole architecture for your financial behavior. They're not just getting told to save more. It's a complete roadmap. Okay, let's get into that roadmap, starting with the mechanics, the financial strategy side. What groundwork does the source say needs to be laid first?
Right, the foundation. These are non-negotiables, really. It's all about fuel for the engine and reducing friction. The source highlights two critical starting points. First, there's Law 1, the primacy of time. Now that sounds simple, yeah.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
But the source adds a layer. It talks about the time horizon effect. Basically, the longer you look out, the more the day-to-day ups and downs, the volatility sort of smooths out. It turns market noise into something that looks more like steady growth until the real exponential curve kicks in later.
Okay, so time isn't just waiting, it's smoothing the ride.
In a way, yes. And that leads directly to the second key strategic law, Law 3, mandatory reinvestment of gains. This is crucial. You have to keep putting the profits back into the machine. Feed the engine, right.
Keep it growing.
Exactly. If you start pulling out gains to spend, you're essentially hitting the brakes on the whole compounding process. You shrink the base amount that's working for you. You end up with like a straight line of growth instead of that curve shooting upwards.
Okay, let's try and make that super concrete. An analogy maybe?
Yeah.
Like Law 1, time is like planting a seed and knowing it needs years to become a tree.
Yeah, good one.
And Law 3, reinvesting, is like making sure you use the fruit from that tree, not just to eat, but to plant more trees, constantly expanding the orchard.
Perfect analogy. You need both. The time to grow and the discipline to replant the harvest.
But here's a practical question that probably jumps out for listeners. I get the idea, perpetual reinvestment, but life happens, right? How does the source deal with the conflict between Law 3, reinvesting everything, and, needing cash sometimes, or dealing with the debt?
That's a really important point, and the source does get into that, mostly in what I call the maintenance laws. For instance, it talks about tackling high-interest debt first, because paying that down is like compounding in reverse, right? It frees up capital.
Yeah.
But specifically on the growth side, Law 3 is pretty absolute, especially early on. If the goal is really significant wealth, you just can't treat investment gains as spending money, not in the beginning. And this brings us to something called the J-curve effect. You might have heard of it.
Vaguely, yeah. Explain that.
Well, growth often looks really slow, almost flat for the first, say, 10, maybe even 20 years. That's the bottom hook of the J. It feels like nothing much is happening.
Okay, I can see why people lose patience there.
Exactly. And that flatness is why patience law 4 is so critical. If you stop reinvesting because it feels slow, if you break law 3, you guarantee you never get to that steep vertical part of the J. That's where the compounding really takes off.
Wow, okay. That completely reframes it. It's not just about earning interest. It's about surviving that initial flat part of the J curve, which leads us perfectly into the second big category of these laws, the mental side, the discipline. If you need to survive that J curve, you need some serious mental toughness.
Absolutely. This is where I think the 40 laws really justify themselves. The math only works if the psychology holds up. The source spends a lot of time on this because, well, discipline is needed to execute laws 1 and 3 over the long haul. If you crack mentally, the best strategy in the world is useless.
So what are the key psychological rules early on?
Okay, two big ones jump out right away. First is Law 4, maintaining patience. We touched on this. It's about long-term mental stamina. Compounding just doesn't give you that instant gratification our brains love. It's delayed gratification dialed up to 11, sometimes over decades. So Law 4 is basically saying, don't sabotage yourself just because you're bored or impatient.
Easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the biggest way we self-sabotage is by reacting emotionally to market swings. Let's go beyond just saying, don't be greedy or fearful. What specific bias is Law 5, guarding emotions trying to fight against.
Right. Law 5 is maybe the linchpin for the whole psychological side. It's designed to fight those cognitive biases that make us wreck the compounding machine at exactly the wrong moments. The biggest enemy here is probably loss aversion. We feel the pain of losses much more intensely, like twice as intensely as the pleasure of gains.
I've heard that.
So when the market drops, say 20%, that paper loss feels terrible. Loss aversion screams at you to sell, get out, stop the pain. But if you do that, you lock in the loss and you break law 1, you interrupt the time component.
And you miss the recovery.
Exactly. The second big bias Law 5 tackles is recency bias. This isn't just greed. It's our tendency to think whatever happened recently will just keep happening. So if tech stocks have been soaring for 2 years, recency bias convinces you they'll soar forever. You pile in, maybe even borrow money to buy more.
And
then the trend eventually turns, as it always does, and you get wiped out, or at least take a huge hit that knocks your compounding way off course. Law 5 basically says you need emotional neutrality. Treat market volatility mostly as noise, not as a signal demanding immediate action.
it's fascinating. The source is basically prescribing a long-term cure for our short-term human instincts. It sounds like it requires constant effort. Thinking back to the 2008 crash, the people who really stuck to Law 4, patience, and Law 5, emotional control, and maybe even kept investing.
They did incredibly well in the decade after.
Right, while those who panicked and sold likely missed out on a huge chunk of that recovery, completely derailing their compounding.
Precisely. It's a powerful illustration.
Okay, so we've got these strategic building blocks, time Law 1 and reinvestment Law 3, and we've got the mental defense system, patience, Law 4, and emotional neutrality, Law 5. But you mentioned a third category earlier, the maintenance laws. How do the other, 35 laws fit into this picture? What do they maintain?
Good question. The remaining laws mostly focus on two things: improving your edge, the effectiveness of your strategy, and minimizing drag things that slow down the compounding. So, for example, some laws might cover developing specialized knowledge in an area to compound your edge. Others focus on minimizing drag, like understanding taxes or fees. A really good example of a maintenance law is Law 28. Never interrupt the compounder for consumption tax.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means if you constantly have to sell assets just to pay income tax or sales tax on things you buy, that money is gone forever from your compounding engine. It creates drag. So the laws encourage thinking about tax efficiency, for instance. It's about looking at the net result after taxes, after fees, and crucially, after your own behavioral mistakes.
Ah, okay. That makes the need for 40 laws much clearer. It's not just investing tips. It's like a complete operating system for your financial life.
That's a great way to put it, a complete operating manual.
And the ultimate goal, according to the source, isn't just getting rich on paper, right? It's about something more.
Yeah, the promise is that mastering all these areas, strategy, psychology, maintenance, leads to financial freedom. The real prize isn't just the money, it's buying back your time, your autonomy.
Okay, let's try and synthesize this for everyone listening. The big takeaway from these 40 principles seems to be that real compounding success isn't just about the math or the market. It's just as much about your own behavior, your habits, your discipline. It's an integrated system, like you said.
Exactly. Your habits are as critical as your investment choices. And that leads to a maybe challenging final thought for you, the listener. If the whole point is achieving this freedom, and it demands so much discipline, especially that patience from Law 4, here's something practical to think about. What's one investment you own that makes you anxious? Maybe you check its price, like multiple times a day.
I think most people can relate to that.
Okay, so the challenge is this. Identify that one investment and then make a behavioral commitment. For the next, say, 90 days, don't check its status at all. That act, that resistance, that's practicing Law 5, emotional neutrality. It's how you start to actually live by these laws, not just understand them. It's training yourself to adhere to the secret law.
That's a fantastic, actionable starting point. Resisting the urge to constantly check. Brilliant. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive into the 40 laws of compounding. Thank you for walking us through that.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, we hope this gives you some concrete ideas to start building or maybe strengthening your own financial flywheel. Thanks for joining us.